I walked into the family reunion with a smile fixed on my face, but inside me, something dark and restless was already stirring. The room was loud, crowded, full of laughter that felt too sharp, too careless. I could feel it in my chest. A quiet storm, waiting. Auntie Linda stood near the dining table, hands folded, posture stiff. As soon as she opened her mouth to speak, I saw it happen again. Cousins exchanged glances. Neighbors smirked. Someone laughed and said, "There she goes again," mocking her for being overprotective, like caring too much was something to be ashamed of. Then it got worse. Someone brought up a small financial slip she'd made months ago. Something private, something harmless, and suddenly it became entertainment. Voices got louder. Jokes landed like slaps. I watched her face tighten as the story was exaggerated, twisted, turned into a punchline in front of everyone she thought was family. Linda tried to redirect the conversation. Calmly, carefully, she warned Uncle Greg about a business deal he was bragging about. I knew the deal sounded wrong the moment he described it. She knew it too. But the moment she spoke, Greg laughed, his friends joining in like it was rehearsed. "Relax, Linda," he said, waving her off. "You worry too much. You wouldn't understand." That's when I heard it. Soft, deliberate, meant only for nearby ears. Someone leaned in and whispered, "She's irrelevant anyway." The word hit me harder than any shout could have. I started noticing everything then. The way people turned their bodies away when she spoke. The way conversations resumed louder without her. The way her voice faded into background noise no one bothered to hear. Her hands were shaking now. I saw it clearly as she tried one last time to speak, her fingers gripping the edge of the chair. Laughter cut her off. Someone mimicked her tone. Another person rolled their eyes. The room kept moving without her, like she wasn't even there. Something burned inside me. Hot, bitter, familiar. Shame mixed with anger because this wasn't new. I had seen this happen again and again, year after year, and every time I told myself it wasn't that bad. This time, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. Linda didn't argue. She didn't cry out. She simply nodded once, turned, and walked out of the room. I caught a glimpse of her face just before she disappeared down the hallway. Eyes glossy, jaw clenched, dignity held together by sheer will. And I stood there, frozen, as my mind replayed everything in brutal clarity. Every smirk, every laugh, every look that said she didn't matter. In that moment, something hardened inside me. I told myself, slowly and clearly, so I would never forget it. No one humiliates her again without consequence. I keep thinking back to the beginning, to the moment my life split in two. My parents were gone too early, leaving behind silence, paperwork, and a child who didn't know how to breathe without them. Linda stepped into that silence without hesitation. She didn't ask if she was ready. She just took me in and became everything at once. Guardian, shield, provider. I remember her coming home exhausted, shoulders slumped, shoes worn thin from standing all day. One job ended, another began. Morning shifts bled into night hours. She counted every dollar twice, not because she was careless, but because she refused to let me fall behind. Private school tuition, clean clothes, packed lunches. She skipped meals so I wouldn't notice how tight things really were. And all the while, Uncle Greg never missed a chance to remind her she wasn't doing enough. His voice always carried that sharp edge, cutting her down in front of everyone. "You're too soft. You don't get how the world works." She never raised her voice back. She just swallowed it and kept going. At family dinners, it was always the same. Linda would offer an opinion and someone would interrupt her mid-sentence. Someone else would correct her, even when she was right. They talked over her, talked around her, talked like she wasn't sitting at the table at all. They treated her like she was naive, like her kindness meant ignorance. What they never saw were the people she trusted who took advantage of her. Friends who borrowed money and never paid it back. Smiles that hid selfish intentions. I watched her give and give, believing in people who only saw her as an opportunity. As a kid, I didn't have the words for what I was feeling, only the fear. Fear that one day she'd break. Fear that if I spoke up, it would make things worse. I learned silence from watching her endure it. Late at night, when the house was quiet, she would finally let the mask slip. Sitting at the kitchen table, voice low, she'd confess how lonely it felt to always be the strong one, how exhausting it was to want respect and never receive it. She never cried loudly. Her pain lived in whispers. There was one story she only told me once. Years ago, she had a business idea. Smart, detailed, carefully planned. She shared it with a colleague she trusted. Weeks later, that same idea was presented as someone else's. When she tried to speak up, no one believed her. They said she was confused, emotional, overreacting. The betrayal sank deep, and she never tried again. Now, looking back, I understand something I didn't then. Every insult, every dismissal, every stolen credit didn't weaken her. It sharpened her. It taught her patience. It taught her how to read people, how to survive quietly, how to wait. And standing there now, carrying the weight of everything she sacrificed, I felt a vow take shape inside of me. Slow, steady, irreversible. I will make them see her strength, even if it destroys their arrogance. I stopped pretending I wasn't paying attention. Every smile, every handshake, every casual insult suddenly became evidence. I began collecting proof quietly, patiently, like someone assembling pieces of a truth no one wanted exposed. Text messages, emails, offhand remarks, promises broken behind closed doors. I watched how family and acquaintances betrayed Linda in small, convenient ways, then acted surprised when she pulled back. They loved showing off what they had. Expensive watches flashed at dinner tables. Real estate deals were bragged about like trophies. They spoke loudly about money and status, drowning out Linda every time she tried to warn them. Every time she offered insight they didn't want to hear. Wisdom didn't impress them, unless it came wrapped in arrogance. I started recording conversations, not to trap them, but to preserve reality. I caught the jokes at her expense, the dismissive comments, the laughter that followed her name. I stored every clip carefully, knowing memories fade, but recordings don't. People began noticing me watching more, speaking less. Friends asked why I was always on my phone, why I seemed distant. Curiosity turned into suspicion. I let them wonder. I needed them careless. Linda sensed it before anyone else. One night, she sat across from me and said softly, "Be careful. Don't become like them." She warned me about crossing lines that couldn't be uncrossed. I listened, but I didn't stop. Justice always looks dangerous before it looks necessary. I started pushing back in small ways. At parties, I corrected lies with facts delivered calmly. When someone exaggerated their success, I asked one precise question that exposed the truth underneath. Conversations shifted, laughter faltered, faces tightened. They didn't know it yet, but the ground beneath them was already cracking. The house grew tense as my plans sharpened. Notes, timelines, quiet rehearsals in my head. I waited for the right moment, not rushing, not hesitating. Timing was everything. And Linda changed too. She stood a little straighter, spoke a little firmer. She noticed how I positioned myself beside her, how I didn't let her words get drowned out anymore. Confidence crept back into her voice. Not loud, not aggressive, but undeniable. Then Uncle Greg made his announcement. At a gathering packed with the same people who mocked Linda, he proudly revealed a lucrative property deal. Big numbers, big promises. Applause followed. I watched Linda's face carefully. She said nothing. Neither did I. They had no idea what we knew. Holding all of it inside came at a cost. My jaw ached from clenching. Sleep came in fragments. Rage stayed trapped under my ribs, burning constantly. But I endured it because anger without direction is useless, and I had direction. Late nights turned into rehearsals. Linda and I walked through every possible reaction. Denial, anger, laughter, panic. We revisited every humiliation she'd endured and turned each one into a calculated response. They thought they were untouchable. They were wrong. The phone rang late at night, cutting through the silence like a warning. I answered, expecting another mundane call. Instead, a voice whispered urgency and trust. A whistleblower had documents. Proof of Greg's corruption, every shady deal, every hidden move meticulously recorded. My heart pounded. This wasn't just family drama, this was far bigger. Their betrayal stretched beyond gossip, beyond petty insults. It was systematic, and now we held the map to expose it all. Shock hit me like a punch to the chest. Every late-night joke about Linda's overprotective nature, every dismissal, suddenly felt like part of a much larger pattern. I realized just how calculated their arrogance had been. It wasn't ignorance. It was entitlement. And we had the evidence. Then Linda did something unexpected. She stepped forward to lead a critical community event, a charity gala she had quietly organized for months. The same people who laughed at her over trivial mistakes were forced to watch her command the room. Every detail, every speech, every recognition highlighted her competence and dedication. Volunteers and community members praised her openly, creating a sharp contrast against the ridicule she had endured for years. I felt it, panic mixed with exhilaration, as I realized the pieces were finally aligning. The tension I had carried for so long transformed into a palpable thrill. We weren't just ready, we were inevitable. Later, Linda confided a secret I hadn't known. Years ago, she had filed complaints about Greg's unethical deals, official reports that vanished into bureaucracy, ignored by those in power. She had waited, watched, and planned quietly, smarter and stronger than anyone, including Greg, had ever imagined. A wave of realization washed over me. They had underestimated her. They had underestimated me. The reckoning we had crafted was no longer hypothetical. It was imminent. Emotions surged, anticipation, righteous fury, and a trembling satisfaction. We mapped out the public showdown with surgical precision. Timing, credibility, and exposure of their arrogance became our weapons. Every scenario, every potential reaction was accounted for. The oppressors remained oblivious, but I could feel the cracks forming beneath their carefully constructed facades. Watching it all in my mind, the unraveling of smug smiles, the faltering bravado, the quiet panic creeping in, sent a visceral thrill through me. Each subtle gesture, each whispered correction in public, struck harder than any confrontation could have. And in that moment, I understood fully. They never saw us coming. And they still wouldn't see it until it was too late. The night of the neighborhood fundraiser arrived, lights glinting off polished floors, laughter echoing in gilded halls. I felt the tension coil in my chest as we entered, documents hidden in my bag, every eye unaware of the reckoning about to unfold. As the crowd mingled, I slipped the evidence onto the presentation table. Greg, oblivious, was mid-boast about his latest deals when the papers were projected for everyone to see. Mismanagement, embezzlement, betrayal, meticulously documented, impossible to deny. Gasps rippled through the room. Faces froze. Conversation stalled. Linda stepped forward, every step deliberate, her posture radiating calm authority. She cleared her throat and silence descended like a curtain. "I've been ignored, mocked, dismissed," she began, her voice steady, piercing. "But the truth cannot be buried any longer." Shock ran through the audience. Whispers spread like wildfire, uncertainty flickering in the eyes of those who had long dismissed her. She held their gaze, unwavering, every word magnified by the crowd's sudden attention. Family members scrambled. Cousins tried to argue, claiming misunderstandings, blaming miscommunication. But the evidence was undeniable. Witnesses we had quietly gathered spoke, one by one, their voices confirming every betrayal. Greg opened his mouth, but no words came. The arrogance that had defined him for years crumbled in real time, peeling away in front of friends, neighbors, and colleagues. Linda's voice rose, tinged with quiet fury as she recounted years of disrespect, the subtle humiliation that had been ignored, the lies that had been paraded as truth. Every anecdote landed like a hammer, each detail exposing the years of condescension he had taken for granted. Legal consequences were immediate. The whistleblower's documents triggered investigations, auditors and authorities digging through Greg's empire with precision. Social media caught wind of the confrontation, amplifying the fallout. The public witnessed the fall of a man who had underestimated us both. I stood back, feeling a cocktail of vindication and awe. Every second, every humiliation they had forced upon Linda, now returned, perfectly calculated. Relief surged through me. Satisfaction, sharp and intoxicating, settled deep in my chest. And then I saw it. Linda's smile, not smug, not triumphant in a cruel way, but serene. Free. Finally free from the shadow of ridicule, her dignity restored, radiating quietly but powerfully, as everyone who had doubted her finally understood. They had underestimated her at their own peril. After the fundraiser, everything shifted. Family fractures appeared like cracks in a once solid wall. Greg and his allies faced the consequences they had long ignored. Social disgrace, whispers that spread to every corner of the neighborhood, and legal scrutiny that left no room for denial. Their arrogance had built a fragile empire, and it crumbled under the weight of truth. Linda's reputation soared. Friends, neighbors, even community leaders who had once dismissed her now sought her counsel, praised her insights, and admired her perseverance. The woman who had endured years of mockery now commanded respect effortlessly, a quiet power that could not be ignored. Watching all of this, I realized revenge had never been just about punishment. It was about reclaiming our own power, taking back the dignity that had been stolen. Every calculated step, every hidden effort had restored something deep within us both. Our bond, once unspoken and understated, grew stronger. She looked at me with understanding, gratitude, and a spark of acknowledgement for the careful restraint I had exercised. We had become allies forged in fire. Even the cousins approached quietly, cautiously. Some apologized, seeking forgiveness for their past laughter, their thoughtless jabs, their willful ignorance. It was humbling to watch them navigate the shame they had long avoided. I remember thinking, quietly to myself, I watched the world correct itself. Slowly, painfully, beautifully. Every injustice we had endured had found its balance, and it was a sight both satisfying and sobering. We ensured Linda's financial and social security, stabilizing what had been threatened for so long. No more sleepless nights over betrayal, no more quiet humiliations. The wound of humiliation finally began to heal. Some scars lingered, of course, a bittersweet reminder of the battles fought and the patience required. But her dignity, was restored. Peace returned in subtle ways. Dinners were calm, laughter genuine. Conversations carried warmth instead of dismissive smirks. Our house, once a place of silent endurance, now held respect, security, and quiet joy. And in those moments, I realized, revenge was not just a spectacle. It was the reclamation of life, of pride, and of the power no one had been willing to grant her before. Look at me now, watching you through this lens, and hear me clearly. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Their patience is a weapon. Justice doesn't always arrive in a rush. Sometimes it simmers, gathering strength in the shadows. Precise. Inevitable. Meticulous planning ensures impact far beyond immediate satisfaction. That is the lesson I carry with me. Loyalty, family, protecting those society dismisses. These are not cliches. They are lifelines. They are shields against cruelty disguised as normalcy. We honored them, and that honor became our power. Arrogance, mockery, dismissiveness, they have a cost. Let my story be a subtle warning. Every insult, every smirk, every laugh carries weight, and some debts are settled with far-reaching consequences. I see Linda now, her laughter spilling freely, unrestrained, eyes glimmering with triumph and relief. That light, the unbreakable spirit, is what they never anticipated, what they could never measure. Take a moment to reflect. Think of your own experiences, the injustices you've endured, the voices that were ignored. Stand up for those you care about. Protect them, shield them, prepare carefully. And remember this, if you've ever been dismissed, ridiculed, laughed at, the power lies not in anger but in resilience, in strategy, in patient readiness. I imagine it all, the journey from humiliation to dominance, like a cinematic frame etched into memory. Every glance, every sigh, every calculated move. Share your stories, reflect, engage, learn, because these lessons are not just mine, they are universal. And let this linger in your mind. They never took her seriously. Until it was too late.